Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy. Well, what are we talking about today? Or whom, shall I say?
So our when is September 6th, 2006. Our where is Portland, Oregon. Our son bitch this week is 59-year-old. 2006.
I was just trying to get an idea of where I was and what I was doing in 2006.
He's in Portland, I don't know about that. You were in...
Me neither.
I think you were in Washington State.
I sure wasn't.
In 2006?
Yeah.
You're in Alabama already?
No.
Where were you in 2006?
Virginia.
Were you really?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
I wasn't in Alabama until 2011, but I wasn't in Washington until 2007.
Oh, I was close.
What?
Anyway. So our son bitch this week is 59-year-old Edward Dalton Haffey. Edward is... So I think he done run in separate crowds. He was 5'9", 180 pounds. Edward served lengthy prison sentences for conspiracy to commit aggravated murder, for robbery, for burglary, conspiracy to commit burglary, because when they pulled him over and he had them there lockpicking tools, and several drug charges. So basically, good old Eddie was no stranger to the legal system, and that is why I say I'm pretty sure you guys ran in separate crowds. In January 1988, so we're going to go back a little bit further than our 2006, a friend and an overly intrusive mother paid for a personal ad for her daughter in the paper.
Kind of personal ad.
The title was Someone Different. The 65-word ad teased SWF, so single white female, 33, overweight but not over life, seeks SM, single male, who wants more out of a relationship.
Wait. No, I can't. Overweight but not over life? What the fuck does that even mean?
It means her mom's saying that she's got a little more meat on her bones.
I get the overweight. I got the overweight but not over life.
Meaning she wants to live life and have fun. I don't know. I didn't put the ad out. But anyway, it said SWF 33, overweight but not over life, seeks SM, single male, who wants more out of a relationship than just slender. That's the ad. I would be so offended if our mother and my friend put that ad in the paper for me. Basically, the ad saying a 33-year-old overweight woman who's looking to have a good time and wants a man that wants somebody that's more than just skinny. I don't know. Basically, if you answer this ad, be okay with some extra meat on my bones. Or her bones, whatever. So then there was a response to that ad titled Someone Different that responded with, "Hi, different. My name is Mike. I am a 39-year-old DWM, divorced white male. I enjoy most things in nature, from wandering the ape caves at Mount St. Helens to walking on the beach at sunset. This newfound couple's love story began with speaking on the phone more than 100 times before they ever met in person a month later." That's a lot of phone calls. 100 times in a month? That's more than 3 times a day.
But does she not have good signal? Because I feel like I do that when I could probably have talked to you 100 times in a month, but that's dropped calls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think that counts.
You don't know?
I'm pretty sure. And okay, this is 1988, so I don't know how many landlines were dropping calls.
You don't remember our Paul's landline?
That's different. Verizon done shoveled that.
I said what I said.
Anyway.
And you said this is 2006. They were cell phones.
You done ain't listening then, because I said we're going to take a step back to January 1988 when a friend and an overly intrusive mother paid for a personal ad for her friend. This is how our couple that we're about to discuss met, okay? Take a chill pill. Our crime that we're going to discuss here in a second.
Drugs.
Apparently you done do. You need to do the ones that help you focus. I think that's called Adderall. Some Ritalin.
Those neither.
You need a prescription for it. We got a problem with you focusing. Anyway, so this is how the couple meets. Our crime takes place in 2006. Keep this shit up and you're not going to get a time frame. Anyway,
or lunch break.
That's your own doings. Anyway, the couple we're discussing, the man, his name is Michael James Kuhnhausen Sr., who was adopted as a newborn in 1948. He was in the military. He went to Vietnam. He claimed he's a douche because he has PTSD from seeing combat. However, his military records list him as a switchboard operator. I don't know how much combat a switchboard operator sees, but it is question. Huh.
Who said he's a douche? He says he himself is a douche?
I'm letting you know that every time that he acts like an asshole to anyone, his scapegoat is he's got PTSD, and that excuses his bad behavior. But it's questioned how much combat and PTSD he could possibly have as a switchboard operator. I don't know. I wasn't in the military. I don't know how much action a switchboard operator sees. So, but at least he served our country. So he's got that on his side. This wonderful gem of a man, his life's philosophy was life is a shit sandwich, and every day you take another bite until you die.
I wouldn't eat a shit sandwich, though.
Neither would I, but that's just
not
us,
even
I guess.
If I was real hungry from you not letting me have breaks.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Take a chill pill. You can have lunch if you
You're
don't
really
keep
pushing them pills today, aren't you?
So that's the man that answered the ad. The woman whose mother, in my opinion, overstepped, Susan Walters. Susan had not witnessed a lot of happy marriages growing up. Her father was in the Air Force. He was a cook, and her mother was a homemaker. But her parents separated when Susan was in second grade. Life was a little chaotic because the kids were constantly moved around. They moved from Colorado to Arizona to California and Nevada, and they shuffled between schools, homes, and like the constant change of households with the parents, like visitation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, so that's their background. And within the year of that ad being ran, they ran off and eloped in Reno.
How old were they?
They were in their 30s by the time they ran off and eloped.
That's why her mom took an ad out. She just wanted her to move out.
Well, she was already out.
Thinking of our sister.
No comment. So she was 33, he was 39, and within that year, they got married. So they were married for 17 years, almost 18, by 2006. They were living in a quiet Portland neighborhood. They did not have children together. Michael was 58 years old in 2006. He got a job a few years after marrying Susan in an adult video store as a custodian, and eventually worked his way up to being a custodian supervisor. Susan was 51, and she worked as a nurse at Providence Medical Center in the emergency room, where she had worked for 30 years. Susan came home a little after 6 p.m. from a long day in the ER on the evening of September 6th. She unlocked her back door, she disarmed the alarm, she put her keys down. You know, the typical routine we all have after a long day. Susan noticed that her curtains were closed, which made her home very dark. It was strange because she was fairly certain she'd opened the curtains before work that morning, but she questioned maybe she hadn't. In the mudroom at the back of her Cape Cod house, Susan found a note by the microwave from her husband. The note read, "Sue, haven't been sleeping well. Had to get away. Went to the beach." He also stated in that letter that he'd see her on Friday and signed it on Friday or Saturday, and then signed it, "Love, me."
Does he frequently do that?
I don't know. Seems strange to me, but it'll make more sense here in a second. So she shrugs off the note. She walks through the house to the front door, went outside, checked her mailbox. She enjoyed the fresh air, went back inside a few minutes later, noticed again her unusually dark home, but she walked to her bedroom. She kicked off her work shoes when suddenly a stranger popped out from behind her bedroom door. This man wore Dockers, a blue striped shirt, and wore a tan baseball hat pulled down low over his eyes.
She couldn't have been too scared if she noticed that detailed what he was wearing before popping him in the face.
I didn't say she popped him in the face.
I'm just saying.
He had his long hair in a ponytail, tucked into a baseball cap. He wore yellow rubber gloves on his hands and carried a red and black claw hammer. He lunged at Susan with the hammer. Now, at this point, it's time for that fight or flight to kick in, right? Susan decided to fight. Susan was being forced to fight this violent felon who was in her bedroom, and she fought hard. They wrestled around, and Susan kept him close to her because she knew that if he couldn't get a full swing in because she was standing too close, that the blows with his hammer would be less powerful. So as Edward raised the hammer up and smashed it into Susan's head, hitting her right in the side of her temple. The scuffle continued. Susan, she had 2 bad knees from repeated injuries and excess weight. She screamed at him, asking who he was and who sent him as they fought. Susan said she slammed her body into his, hoping that he'd fall, but he didn't. He spun her around, slammed her against the wall, and delivered a punch that split her lip, knocked her to the floor.
Is he a big man?
I told you how much he weighed. 180 pounds, 5'9".
So it's her husband?
No, I said it was a stranger. He knocked her to the floor, and he was standing over her with the hammer in his hand. She managed to pull him down to the ground, and she started to viciously bite this man, which, by the way, the man was Edward, the man I mentioned before with the criminal record. While wrestling on the floor, she bit his arm, she bit his side, she bit his thigh, she even bit through his zipper, straight through to his genitals.
What the hell? She have those puppies sharpened beforehand?
She was thinking that she was going to die.
Hold on. How do you bite through a zipper?
I figure she just bit like it was a corn on the cob and just...
We eat corn different.
But you know what I mean? Like if she turned the zipper like it was a piece of corn instead of like coming straight at it.
I do not know what you're fucking talking about. Because if I'm going to be biting somebody, I'm going to be like trying to rip meat off the bone, like a rib or a chicken wing, not eating corn. That, to me, that I mentally pictured you flea biting someone's jeans along their zipper.
Yes, well, not...
And I'm sorry, that doesn't seem like a defensive tactic.
Okay, let me use different verbiage since you can't, since you're picturing flea biting. Okay, well, all I meant by the corn was the zipper I picture as being turned horizontally instead of vertically, and she's biting it that way because I don't see being able to bite down on a zipper vertically. I feel like that would hurt your lips.
And your teeth.
But anyway, that's why I said I picture it more.
That's why I was saying, the fuck?
That's why I picture like she bit the zipper horizontally instead of vertically, because then she can actually bite around the zipper instead of through the zipper.
You said it through.
That's what it said. Maybe
I'm just simply questioning how sharp are those bad boys? Because I feel like a dog could do that, but let's face it, their jaws are meant for bone crushing. Ours are not. So I feel like maybe they could also do some zipper crushing. But like now you threw in the corn on the cob thing, and one, I'm not inviting you to any barbecue picnics with corn on the cob because I feel like it'd be a sideshow.
Oh my gosh, you have issues. Anyway.
You're the one eating corn like a savage.
She threw her leg over his body and climbed on top of him, pinning him down. The only thing Edward said during this entire ordeal to Susan was, "God, you're strong."
You know what? This is reminding me of our first episode. Does he end up calling 911 on it for himself?
Shh, just be patient. So she managed to wrestle the hammer from him, and she swung the claw side of the hammer 3 times, possibly 4, into the side of Edward's skull. He snatched the hammer back from Susan, and that's
how small is this hammer that everybody keeps getting hit in the head with it and they're still trucking? I'm sorry, one hammer blow and I feel like I'll be like, I'm gonna go. But you 4 want to see the hammer with the claw side? 4? Mm-hmm. What is going on? And this is already before when she's just chomped on him and through his zipper. Why is he there?
So we'll get to that. I'm sending you a picture.
He's trying to rob and she happened to be home, or...
So we'll get to that. Right now we're going through
so confusing.
We're going through the events. You're going to learn them as we go.
Just so we're clear, I don't feel bad for him getting hit in the head 4 times with a hammer.
No, neither do I. But I just sent you a picture of the hammer.
You know what I would say?
It's a
Fuck
normal
around
size
and
hammer.
find out.
Exactly.
That's what he learned today, or that whatever day it was.
It was September 6, 2006. I done said it multiple times now. Clean out your ear holes. I
I
sent you a
wasn't
picture.
asking. I was just saying he fucked around and found out. And apparently his find out was 4 claw hammer strikes to the side of his head.
Sure was. I sent you a picture of the hammer.
I saw the picture. It's a normal dang hammer. Looks like from the dollar store.
So that's the hammer. She whacked him in the head. They're on the ground now. He ends up wrestling the hammer back from her, and that's while he's grasping for the hammer. She grabbed him by the throat. Edward ended up biting Susan as she tried to choke him.
Now, she started it. He just was like, fine, we're going to start doing this.
It's fighting real dirty.
Next is the eye gouging.
That doesn't happen. But something I did fail to mention earlier was Susan's size. She's 5'4" and 260 pounds. And if you don't remember, which I assume you don't, Edward was a mere 180 pounds, but 5 inches taller than Susan, standing at 5'9". She's got him beat by almost 100 pounds. So Susan managed to get Edward into a chokehold, and she held on to his throat for dear life. After what felt like forever, this battle was over. From start to finish, it was approximately 15 minutes.
Susan wrestling.
Susan calmly released her grip on her attacker's throat, stood up, and walked out of her home. She walked to her neighbor Annie Warnock's house to get help. Annie called 911. The dispatcher asked Annie, does Susan need a hospital? Because she was bleeding from being bitten and from being hit with a hammer. And her neighbor responded, no. She's a nurse. She's calm. She said to call an ambulance for the guy. He might be dead. Police come out.
But take your time. It's only getting colder.
So the police come out. They enter Susan's home and they find Edward dead in the hallway. Susan was treated and released because all the thrashing and...
At no point did you say this left the bedroom.
I don't know at what point they left the bedroom. In the details on this attack, I don't know when they left the bedroom.
Did her mom take out another ad and said that she liked the rape fantasies and paid somebody to burglarize her?
No, that's disgusting, by the way. Anyway, so Susan was treated and released for minor injuries at Providence Medical Center. Now, fun fact for you, Claire. Providence Medical Center offers regular self-defense classes to their staff, which Susan luckily took several times over during her 30 years of working there. However, she doubted if she'd even remember any of the moves in a high-stress situation. Part of her training was part of what she was taught was how to slip out of headlocks and holds that people could put you in.
Where did the biting come into? Because I don't know. I haven't taken a self-defense class, but I feel like, it was effective, I guess. However, it's kind of like when you were telling me about your first aid of licking the wound strategy. I don't think I've heard the advice of self-defense of bite here and here.
I never said that. I never said that.
You'll have to listen to our earlier cases then.
I know what
for them golden nuggets.
So Susan's neighbors believe that her size gave her an advantage over her attacker, which I find so offensive because it's not like she's tall. So they're saying because she's got weight on her, she's
But at the same time, have you tried to open a really big jar that you can't get your hands around? If you struggle with getting the right leverage, it can be a more difficult task, where if it's a teeny tiny jar that you can get a real good grasp on, it's easier to accomplish. And he was a real tiny jar, and she could wrap her hands around real easy. And he, however, could not get his little itty bitty lady fingers around her.
Right. So anyway, police and prosecutors do not bring charges against Susan because under Oregon law, people can use reasonable deadly force when defending themselves against an intruder or burglar in their homes. The police believe that Edward was burglarizing Susan's home when she surprised him by returning home from work.
So the husband called in a hit.
That's the end. Edward's dead. Susan's not being charged, and she survived with minor injuries. Open shut.
You're full of shit, too.
Just kidding. That's not all I've got.
I already said the husband put out a hit, and he better be real concerned when he gets home because she's fired up and ready to bite.
So it's great and all that the police think this man was with a history of robbery and burglary is just robbing Susan's home. But Susan is feeling sketchy because the stranger was in her home, in her locked home. And police are like, he's probably just there to burglarize. She's like, no, the house is locked. So police are busy checking to, like, where's the point of entry for this guy?
He got a key.
They didn't find any obvious signs like a broken window or a kicked-in door, which was puzzling. Also, to add to this curious situation was that their alarm that was in working order, according to Susan, because she said she had to turn it off when she got home. But this means that Edward somehow got past the house's alarm system. Police asked Susan, who all knows the alarm codes? And that's when she reveals only one other person, her estranged husband, Michael. As it turns out, Susan and Michael were going through a tough time in their marriage. Michael wanted things to work out, but Susan was done. She was tired of how emotionally and verbally abusive her husband had become. After 17 years of marriage, Susan had had enough. They never did anything together anymore. No quality time. If she would try to kiss him, he'd burp in her face. She wanted to be happy again, and that meant this disgusting slob had to go. So she kicked Michael out. She wanted a divorce. He moved in with his dad, and the nearly fatal mistake Susan made was that she didn't change the locks or the alarm codes. Now, as the police processed the scene, they missed something in the basement, but shortly after things calmed down, and I believe the police had left, Susan had her friend Helen come over because, let's face it, after you've had somebody violate your privacy and be in your home, I wouldn't want to be there alone. So her friend Helen came over and she was there with Susan. I suspect she's helping her clean up the blood. I do have pictures that we'll post on Facebook, but there was blood everywhere.
And also, just even if he didn't give, or her estranged husband didn't give away an alarm code, I'm going to say out there advice to everyone going through a divorce or a breakup or whatever you're doing. The first thing you should do is change the alarm code.
Yeah. Helen found something that seemed out of place in Susan's basement. The police hadn't noticed a backpack when they were inspecting Susan's cluttered basement. Inside, this is the one that I told you, by the way, that was going to make you roll your eyes, okay? Inside this backpack was a container of Hershey's chocolate syrup, $200 in cash, diabetes pills, and a pay stub made out to Edward Haffey. Also inside the backpack, good old Eddie had a day planner with, quote, call Mike, get letter, scribbled on the week of September 4th, so 2 days prior to him breaking into Susan's house, along with Michael's cell phone number inside of a folder. It made me laugh, though, that he's got a bottle of chocolate syrup and diabetes pills. That's what he's carrying around with him?
So, initially, I would tend to chuckle at that. However, depending on which side of the diabetic meter he's on, he could be having the chocolate syrup because if he runs
needs the
low,
boost. Yeah.
Because when Dave was struggling with some of his numbers, that he would carry around the gel icing in his car because you can just squirt some of that.
I get you. Kind of like on Steel Magnolias, since we always reference movies when they pop a piece of candy in her mouth and give her orange juice. I gotcha. All right, whatever. Also, fun fact, that their pay stub that was written out to Edward was from their adult video store where Michael was a supervisor, because good old Eddie was a custodian who worked for Michael. Michael was arrested on September 14th because detectives felt that he had more to do with the attack on his estranged wife than just letting Edward into the home. And as per usual, he claimed he was innocent. He was officially charged with conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder.
He should also be held responsible for the dude dying because he facilitated the events that led up to his death.
Sure should have. He was held on a $500,000 bail while awaiting trial. And come to find out, Michael offered Edward $5,000 up front and $45,000 more after Susan was murdered, because Michael knew that Susan had paid off their home, which was worth $300,000. And if Susan died, the house would be all his. So,
Greedy pig.
mm-hmm. And then Michael had also asked another person to kill Susan, but that person said no. And once that person saw the news about Susan being attacked, he came forward and told police about Michael's proposition to him to murder Susan.
This guy's an idiot.
Yeah. So eventually, Michael sees the evidence piling up against him, and he ends up confessing to police that when he entered Susan's house to leave the note that he was going to the beach, create himself an alibi, that's when he unlocked everything and disarmed the code for Edward.
But here's a thought. Who lets their estranged spouse know they're going on vacation?
I think he was expecting her to be dead.
Yeah, but it doesn't even make any sense.
He could have gone with the whole, he was trying to work things out. That's why he left a note. I don't know. He wasn't very smart. He disarmed the alarm for Edward in order for him to get in the house to attack Susan. Michael ended up pleading guilty on August 30th, 2007 for soliciting Susan's murderer. He was sentenced to only 10 years in prison for hiring a hitman who was his wife, not only escaped being murdered, but strangled her would-be killer with her bare hands. Yeah,
they certainly do things different, because that one feller that paid to have his wife killed in Canada, and it was successful, he got life. And he wasn't even the trigger man.
Well, I agree with you. I think he should have been charged with Edward's death, because he facilitated the whole thing. But I'm happy to report Michael died of cancer while in prison. And what was laughable was he did his entire sentence except 6 months, because he passed away 6 months prior to his release date.
That was the world intervening.
Sure was. Oh, and an autopsy confirmed that the cause of death for Edward was, in fact, strangulation. Because I was curious whether or not it was her chokehold or if one of the strikes to his head, caused something. Yeah. But no, it was strangulation. And the neighbor said that they were comforted to learn that the intruder wasn't a violent criminal breaking into random homes. I mean, I guess. Susan now goes by Susan Walters. She's put her focus on advocacy and the developing of an internet portal for crime victims.
And now teaches her own unique style of self-defense.
She sure do. Bite the zipper. Fun fact about Oregon, nearly 1 in 4 murders in Oregon involve intimate partners. And when Susan speaks about the day in September of 2006, Susan's quoted as saying, "I didn't choose his death. I chose my life." I don't know who to say. I don't know who the main person is in this here story, because Michael's the son bitch that hired Edward. Edward's the one that chose to go along with it. And Susan she's not really a winner, because, God.
She's your main character. You started out with her love story ad thing.
Technically, I started out with Edward's criminal history, but that's
Susan
all right.
Susan and her zipper biting self-defense that saved her life.
So like I was trying to tell you before, Susan, when she started biting Edward, she later says in an interview that she thought she was going to die, and she wanted to leave as much evidence as possible on her attacker so they could to help police find out who murdered her, which I find that so sad. I couldn't imagine
that state of mind.
Yeah, being in that state of mind to where you think you're going to die, but you want this piece of shit motherfucker to be caught. So you're going to put as much evidence on his person and on your person in order to help police catch him. I can't imagine. She's one hell of a lady.
I feel like that's why she survived, because she still fought, even in that mindset of she thought she was already losing, but because she was prepared to die, I feel like is why she lived.
Yeah, I agree.
But I can't imagine being in that state of mind either of she was trying to solve her own murder or help solve her own murder before it happened.
It makes
It's
me
crazy.
sad for
I'm
her.
glad for her that she won. I still say the husband should have been charged for his death.
I agree.
That just means if it's worth fighting for, it's worth fighting dirty for. Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.